ECSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and
Check this out, we got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and it's that time of the week for the Midday Market Report with good friend and colleague, Mr. Scotty Webb. Beam him up, Scotty Webb, live from Tampa, as we will break down Friday night MLB lights, full slate. I reached out to him early this morning. I says, hey, do you want to come on second at 11:30, or do we want to fly solo at 1:30? He's like, Jeff, there's 15 damn games to break down here. And I was only, just in case he had an afternoon, session with the felt on some poker or something. I always want to give Scotty the option. And, of course, we're here now. So I can't wait to talk some shop and then, of course, get his fabulous breakdown for the Friday Night Lights. First and foremost, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnerships. It's WagerWire. Head on over to Google Play. Download the app. It is free. AtlantaSteaksAndSeafood.com. Steaks, chops, seafood, appetizers, wine. Terry's got it all. Set it and forget it with 4 monthly, I call them protein plans, subscription plans. Just every 30 days, I have a box of protein delivered to me from Terry. Take a look at them. Tell them JD from ECSI sent you. So without further ado, Mr. Scotty Webb. What's up, champ?
Hey, man. It's getting ready for a new weekend in baseball. We are about the halfway point now, I think. And some of these teams got to get it going.
Yeah, right behind me, it's called the Boston Red Sox. And I don't want to say, and again, I always say this, Scotty, I don't want this show to be controlled or about the Red Sox because I live 45 minutes away from that. No, that's not what our show's about. Mediocrity, bad news Bears, fielding, runner on second, ground ball to short towards the third base side, and the runner runs to third. Mr. Duran, not his first time he's done that either. My point is, I know we don't want to give up hope, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. And the 2 results I didn't expect, Scotty, is how well the Jays and the Rays have played. So it's not just go catching the Yankees anymore. And, oh, by the way, the Orioles have woken up too.
Yeah, the American League East is showing some muscle right now, right? So, getting to the Red Sox, I've been, trying to keep you from jumping off the ledge about the Red Sox for the last 3 weeks. I'm going to do it again. I'm not worried about the Red Sox, other than we have talked about this, or I've mentioned this. I think they play terrible baseball. I don't think they play a standard that's very high. I think they win games when they get good pitching, and that's that's normal for any team, I suppose. But that their offense isn't terrible. I knew they were going to struggle on the road out west, so I'm not worried about them. I will say that that they get the Blue Jays, so they're going to need to win these games, or at least win the series, not necessarily every single game, but they're not out of this by any stretch because it's the American League. Some of these teams in the National League, they're like, think about if you're the St. Louis Cardinals and you're like a 500-ish type team, and you're trying to make the playoffs. God, you gotta be really good to make the playoffs in that league. You know what I mean? Like you can't be an also ran. Like if you go look at the wild card standings, and you look at how many games under 500 some of these teams are in the American League, and they're right in the race. They're not even close in the National League. So it's a different dynamic. So I'm not really worried about the Red Sox, other than they don't play good brand of baseball. They don't move runners well. They make defensive mistakes all the time. They make base running errors all the time. And I was looking so. How I do my standings, right? I do my standings based on what Fangraph says they're going to be and what Baseball Prospectus is going to be, and then I incorporate base runs. So it's a combination of all three things. So if I just look at what Fangraphs and Baseball Perspectives are, they got Boston winning 78 games. Well, that's not good enough. 78 games isn't going to get it done. Well, base runs says they're 5 games unlucky. So if you add 5 games to where they are, theoretically they're as good as the Rays. And if you were to match the Rays up at home with the Red Sox, Crochet is going to be a favorite to win his game, right? Bello is going to be kind of right there with any of the Rays guys. So they're competitive with those teams. So I look at it and sit here and go, Boston is just as good as these teams. They just need to do some things. So when looking at that and looking at that in particular, in the last 30 games, the Boston Red Sox are 14-16. The average major league team, I don't know how this comes out to them. It must be the way the math works, is 14-15. It's only 29 games. So they're right there. They're not above or below, right? They're just stagnant in 30 days. In the last 20 games, the Red Sox are 11-9, and Major League Baseball is 10-10. So in the last 20 games, they're maybe just a little bit better. And in the last 10 games, the Red Sox are 4-6, and Major League Baseball is 5-5. So they're when you kind of look at it from that perspective, you sit there and go, well, they're not doing anything great. They're not doing anything bad. So then you kind of look at it from 2 other perspectives, Jeff. One of them is they're 9 wins and 19 losses in 1-run games. Well, that's because of how the brand of baseball they play. They don't play good baseball. They're 9-19. That's 10 games below 500. Well, why do you think that the base runs gives them extra games? Because those are games, some of those games they should have won. They've just been unlucky in sequencing and different things and the events in bad baseball and whatever, and that's why they're getting this boost in my ratings. And then if you look at teams versus the American League East, just look at the American League East. The Boston Red Sox against the American League East is 15-11. That's number 1 in the American League East. Of all the teams in the American League East, that's number 1. Number 2 is the Tampa Bay Rays, and they're 12-11. The Yankees are 10-12. The Orioles are 11-12. Where's Toronto at? Toronto's in here somewhere. There they are. They're 10-12. So they get the best record of playing the teams in the American League East. So you shouldn't be writing this team off yet. The teams that are kind of in front of them. Let me pull it up real quick, and I can tell you who they are. My opinion is like those teams are not necessarily going to be teams that wild card. There you go. But there we go. So the teams that are in front of them right now in the American League, that's not what I want. That's what I want. There we go. So you got the Guardians. Well, they're better than the Guardians. They can hit better than the Guardians, and theoretically, they got better pitchers than the Guardians. The Guardians, they got a good bullpen. That's about it. And then you got the Angels. Well, the Angels, they're 500ish at best. And I know that the Angels just beat the Red Sox out there, but that was after already playing Seattle and San Francisco, and then they had to go to play the Angels. And then the Texas Rangers. Okay, well, that might be a problem because Texas is finding DeGrom again, and Evaldi's pitching tonight. And they'll get Malley back, and so they'll get some pitching going, and somewhere down the line they'll hit a little bit. Those are the only teams in front of them that and then you got Seattle, Toronto, and the Rays. Well, we'll have to see where they go and what they do, and maybe they do something the trade deadline and bring in somebody that can pitch or somebody that can hit or who knows what, but. The point I'm trying to make is that I don't think that the Red Sox are a team that should be counted out. I'm not counting on them. Let me put it that way. But is there a path and an avenue? Absolutely. I do think there's absolutely a path that they can get there.
The sad part about it all is, and I didn't like the move, they spent $11 million on Chapman, and Chapman has been absolutely lights out. And we haven't had that dominant guy back there. I don't put Kenley Jansen and
right.
We had Papelbon back there who had a good run back there. We've had Kimbrel who had a decent run, but Chapman has just been lights out. And the Walker Buehler experiment, I was the first one to sign up for that. Get me the playoff Walker Buehler. Get me the kid, the bulldog that we saw in the World Series. Something's not right. In the first inning alone, 4 walks, 2 hit batsmen, and then they bring him out for, I think, the second inning, another walk, another hit bat. I'm shocked. By the time he got to the dugout, Scotty, he wasn't put on the IL. There's something wrong. And so, no Devers now, and it was the right move. My point is, they've been in the same spot, Scotty, the last 3 or 4 years, and they haven't bought. They've had a guy on the IL that is getting ready to come back, and that would have been their big sign-in. He's the guy that's going to give us the boost. So I hate to say this. This Alex Cora is not the Alex Cora that I signed up for. And my love affair for Tito, and I really like Alex, but there's too much turmoil between him or Breslow. So right now, today, one of those two has to go. And then if you want to be buyers, fine. If you want to move Chapman, someone wants to take on Buehler. The one gift I'm asking for as a Red Sox fan, get it done, is please give me an Alex Bregman extension, and then I don't care what they do the rest of the year. That's it.
Well, I think Alex Bregman is a player type that they need. I mean, he's a veteran guy, but he's got winning pedigree. That's the big difference. You know what I mean? Like, he's a guy that's been there, done that. He's been in the big games. He's won World Series games, the pressure-packed situations and so forth. He's been relied upon. He's had to make the defensive plays. And when you start to look at their lineup and who plays for them, who else can you say is in that lineup that has done that? I don't, Devers isn't there anymore, and he played, but he played in big games, but I don't know that you've got guys that really played in big games, and that includes Crochet and all those guys. I'm not saying anything wrong about Crochet. Crochet's been really, really good. So when it comes to what teams are looking for and what they need and kind of how all that stuff goes, I just look at it and think, Bregman's that kind of guy, but they need another one. They need another calming guy that can do the work and get the job done and be relied upon, because you took a guy that is 100 RBI guy out of your lineup,
Mhm.
and you don't got a replacement for that. And Bregman's hurt, and I don't know that he's a 100 RBI guy, but he's probably pretty close. He's a reliable, dependable guy. I don't know if he's a 100 RBI guy, but you got to have those guys because that's how you score runs. If you don't have them, the latest numbers are basically 41% of all scores are runs scored are because of home runs. 41. So when you start to think about what Bregman can do, he can do a lot because it's very similar to where he played in Houston. The Crawford boxes are not deep, so he can hit the ball over the wall out in left field, and he can do the same thing. So I like the idea, and I saw a report the other day that he's willing and wanting to stay there. So I think that's a match that'll probably happen. I think. I think that one of the things that you can certainly see is there's a big difference in call-up pitchers, Mizorowski and Burns and these guys, right, who can go out there and they can jump in and get people out. I mean, they can go, velocity and movement plays. You can say whatever you want to about, these guys, but man, you go out and throw 100 miles an hour and you move the ball around. Those hitters can't hit it. So on the backside of that, you call up guys like Meyer and Anthony because they're doing great in the minor leagues. Look, it's a different thing. Caglione and all those guys that they called up, that they're superstar hitters in AAA and AA, and they're hitting all these home runs and stuff. It takes time for hitters to understand what they're seeing because they're not seeing the same stuff that they saw in the minor leagues. The B, the stadium differences and the reliance on what they're supposed to be and what they're not is all different. So that's a development side altogether differently. So I like the fact that he keeps putting them out there. I mean, they're not hitting, but he keeps putting them out there. And eventually they'll get to where they need to go. It's just like a kid coming out of, spring training. You need close to 60 to 100 at-bats in the major leagues to have an idea you're going to make it or not. And what developmentally structure sound-wise things you need to go, right? I mean, everybody thought this Jack Caglione guy was going to be the greatest guy in the world. Well, I think he's hit 2 home runs, and he only did that in the same game. And he's not hitting. None of these kids they called up to be dynamic hitters are doing the things that the pitchers can. The pitchers are coming up and they're lights out. These guys go out there and do whatever they need to do. Now Burns, when he pitched his first game, struck out the first 6 outs he made, but he was losing the game when he left because it's just baseball. It's the way it is. You get hit a home run or you get this or that or whatever, and you're behind. But Mizorowski's been something else, and I don't know. I'll see what kind of thing. What's interesting is when you look at Stuff Plus and Pitcher Plus for Mizorowski, he doesn't grade out as well as you might think he does. It's high, but it's not like what I would have thought. So it's interesting. His Sierra numbers and stuff are all speculative. They don't buy it yet. He hasn't gotten a lot of run in data numbers. So when I'm putting my numbers together and stuff, he comes out pretty low. Like that Skeens game that he pitched. I had Pittsburgh way favorite because Skeens is obviously established and dynamic and a good pitcher, and that and he's second best pitcher in baseball according to WAR's numbers. Skubal's number 1. He's number 2. Mizorowski is not even on the board yet, but that's just because he's new and they don't give you credit for doing stuff. Like one of these services, I have to kind of finagle and bump because they didn't like DeGrom either. One of them goes, DeGrom's great, and the other one goes, DeGrom needs to show me something, and they keep showing him stuff and they keep bumping him up and bumping him up and bumping. I'm like, what the hell's the matter with you people? But that's the way data works. You need a number of opportunities for these things to really work. And anyway, whatever, it is what it is. But I'm interested this weekend. You've got look what the Mets just played. The Mets just played the Braves. Now they get the Phillies. So it's kind of an interesting thing. The Phillies were doing great until they ran into the Astros, and the Astros can pitch now. Look at runs allowed in Major League Baseball, and you'll find that the Astros are the best. They're better than anybody else, anybody. And you know what? When you can go out there and you can throw, what was that guy's name, Gordon, yesterday, and you can go beat Christopher Sanchez. That's saying something, right? I mean, I get it. It was 1-0 or whatever, but that's how you're going to play pitched games. They beat Wheeler, so they got guys that can match up. You got Brown out there. You got Valdez, Gordon. You got this kid pitching today. That's a team that I don't think anybody had on their radar in terms of being this good. Like when you look at the numbers, they're the second best record in the American League, second best behind Detroit. And I would have never told you that. I would have told you that they didn't even have a chance to win the American League West because I didn't think they were going to pitch. And what's his name's hurt again. McCullers, I mean, like he hasn't been pitching again. Where do these teams have this depth of pitching? Like, look at what Detroit did yesterday. That they had a guy named Dietrich Enns pitch yesterday. Pitched 5 innings, gave up nothing. I mean, nothing, and they won the game. So and I get it, but you've got to have these arms, or you're in trouble. It's like Colorado. They just keep throwing guys out there that can't get anybody out, and they expect them. You said the definition of stupidity or whatever. That's it. You know what I mean? Like you need to find a guy that can. They started Gomber again, right? Gomber's back out there. Well, what's his numbers? His numbers are 6 ERAs and stuff like that again already after 3 games. So you're never going to get there unless you can figure out how to find the right pitchers, and they're around. I mean, like this Dietrich Enns guy that Detroit has, that they got him from I think it was either the Korean League or it was the Japanese League. I can't remember which one, but he was around for a while, was a relief pitcher, and then he went to those foreign league, came back and pitched a little bit in the minor leagues for them, had some success. They threw him in there. It's great. It's like the guy pitching for him today, Gibson Sawyer, whatever. He's the same kind of guy. He's been around forever, but they go out there and they give them what they have. And then these teams have good bullpens. And when you have a good, deep bullpen, the starter only has to go 5. If he can get you through 5 and keep you in the game, you're in good shape. And, the way baseball works today, all you got to do is keep the ball in the park. Don't give up the home run. And you're probably got a chance.
I'm going to turn the slate over to you to break down any amount of games that you would like to. Full slate. Before I let you go, just a couple numbers. I've been really focusing on some opening series prices, which has allowed me not easier is not the right word. It has helped in the later of these series. A perfect example, we talked about Atlanta, was minus 120. 4-game series, they wheel out Strider and Schwellenbach. They're up 2-0. Perfect sign for me to go grab the Mets game 3. We had the Mets full game, and we had their team total doubled up on them. And then what they do, they went out and won 4-0 last night. There's 4 series. I'm just going to throw you the series prices, which kind of, just watching the market, kind of a little eye-opener. First, Baltimore overnight, minus 125 series now against Tampa. They're hosting them. Now Tampa's minus 120 there. Cincinnati, minus 145 against the slumping Padres, number 2. Toronto Blue Jays coming to Fenway. Toronto minus 115 against the Red Sox. That's number 3. And you talked about Philadelphia and Atlanta. Atlanta minus 180 overnight, now minus 170 to win that series. So a couple of those series prices, Scotty, really eye opening. Be interested to see how these, go through.
Yeah, I think some of these things are surprising to me in a certain way. I put a thing out about the Rays. Look at how many home games the Rays have played. The Rays have played at home. Where are they? There. The Rays have played 60, 40, 50 home games already. Well, they only play 82 or 81. So they have a ton, like a virtual ton of road games coming up, and they're going to be on the road a lot. So favorable for them that they've played a lot of home games, I suppose, but not so much so that they couldn't even figure out their park for a long time. They have a winning record there now, but it was pretty difficult for the Rays at the beginning. They couldn't figure out Steinbrenner Field. They were losing games all the time, just like Oakland does.
And we talked about this spring training. The reason that they were so overloaded to start is because of the heat in the summer. So that's why they have the 50 home games already.
Yeah, no question. So now they're on the road a ton. So, and I've said it 8 million times. Home teams win, road teams don't. So you got to be real careful picking your spots. Now I say that road teams don't win. The good teams win on the road. It doesn't matter. The good teams win on the road. They just do. It's amazing that the good teams will still go win on the road, at least more than 500. And do, like the Tigers are good on the road. Those teams they're just amazing how some of these things work. But some of these teams, like the Dodgers, they're only a couple games over 500 on the road. They're not a great road team. The Dodgers get so much lift at home, it's unbelievable. But you got to kind of keep that in mind when you start thinking about series prices. Is you're going to have a road team win 2 out of 3, and it's hard enough to win 1. So to win 2 out of 3, you need pitching dominance and you need offensive dominance. My suggestion, especially right now, is the Rays have both. So I'm not worried about the Rays on the road in Baltimore right now. They've seen them 8 million times. But Pepio, I'll go over it in a minute. Pepio's pitching like an ace. Like he is unbelievable. Everybody wants to talk about Rasmussen, right? And how good Rasmussen is. Pepio's pitching better than Rasmussen right now. So, and Sugano, that's who he's facing, right? Well, who else can Baltimore throw that like if I go pull, you're going to love this. If I pull this up and I go, show me, where are the leaders, pitching leaders, and we'll just do the last 30 days, and we'll do Baltimore Orioles. Where are they? Orioles. We'll do starting pitchers. We got to go to not qualified. There we go. So the number 1 pitcher with the highest WAR number in the last 30 days, which is just one more, is Charlie Morton. He's the best pitcher they got. So you think Charlie Morton's going to match up against Rasmussen or any of these guys, the Baz and these guys that the Rays are throwing out there? And then to top that off, when I sit here and I go, hey, let me show you something about the Rays offense. The Rays offense over here, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay ranks 3rd in offensive WAR. They're 9th in isolated power. They're 45% better than an average offense. And comparing to them to that, they're 11.8 runs better than an average offense. And right now, Baltimore, they rank 29th. So you've got cream of the crop offense against bottom of the barrel offense, and you've got a pitching mismatch. This is not one of those spots where you sit there and go, oh, I'm worried about the away team. The away team has the dominant factor. And if you want to put the bullpens in, the Rays got a dominant bullpen, right? So not that Baltimore's bullpen's been bad over the last 14 days. They've been surprising the hell out of me. Their bullpen's been pretty good. So I think that series is a little bit of a misnomer. Now, one of the things I will say that most people don't realize, because Atlanta's so far out of it in terms of kind of what the statistics are and where their ranking is, their power ranking is not. Like if you go and power rank where they are and where they should be in the National League, you got Dodgers number 1, and then you got the Mets number 2, and you got Cubs and Braves, and then Phillies. The Braves are that high. Now they're that high, their Fangraphs and Baseball Prospectus numbers 84 wins. But they are 5 wins short because of sequencing and stupid stuff or whatever. So you add those 5 on there, and they're just as good as almost any of those teams. They're better than the Phillies. The Phillies are showing 91 wins between those two, but they're 4 games better. So they got to take 4 games off. You do that and you flip-flop them. And all of a sudden, that's why you see Bryce Elder at minus 150 or 160 or whatever he is today against the Phillies, for God's sakes. And this kid Abel is a kid that goes out and throws 97 miles an hour. So he's got good stuff, but his metrics are really bad today. Like they're not good at all. And they're coming off of that Houston series, so they can't hit. But if you match them up, Atlanta can't hit either. Yeah, they just got bad against the Mets. So and I think this will be a struggle too for that matter. And you were talking about like the Red Sox in the Blue Jays series. This is one of those spots where the Red Sox at home need to win the series. This is one of those where I sit here and go, well, if they don't win this series, you can start agreeing with Jeff a little bit, and these guys can start going down. But they're going to need their pitchers to step up. Dobbins has been a guy that stepped up. I think Bello has pitched better in his last few starts. Right, he's done good. So that worries me in a sense that where's the regression for those guys at, and some different things. Maybe they've peaked and they're going to fall some. Well, then the offense needs to pick up. Well, the offense is kind of shitty right now. So these guys need to get it to a point where this is one of those series where Toronto, as good as quote they are, that they're not dominant, and Guerrero hasn't been MVP Guerrero, right? Bichette started to hit, so and Springer's been their best hitter all season. Springer and Kirk, those guys. So when you sit there and go, what does Toronto got? The same shit they had last year. They don't have anything different this year than last year. And Boston, they got some young kids. Now they got to get those kids going and they got to figure out how to communicate, how to get these kids going so that they show better, right? I think some of this stuff is interesting. Like Houston just got done with the Phillies. Now they get the Cubs. Holy crap. What is, and it's crazy for what Houston's going to have to deal with. So, but the interesting thing is the Cubs are like number 1 in offense, but they don't pitch that great. And you got the great pitching all the way through for Houston and great timely hitting. So we're in super bullpen. So we'll see what happens in that series. So when I'm answering your question about some of this stuff, Jeff, I think it's interesting to look that I don't like if you're telling me that Tampa Bay is not a favorite to win that series. I think that's a mistake. But I think you said it flipped. So I think the bettors went and said, yeah, that's probably right. And then Boston and Toronto, I think it is probably a pick'em series, to be honest. But being at home, I think in the way Boston has played against the American League East, I think they can win this series. I mean, you're not, Gosman's already pitched, so you're going to have to face Bassett and I don't know who else, but you're not facing the cream of the crop with these guys. You've seen Barrios 8 million times, so it's not like you're going to have such an issue with that. And this Atlanta series, I think with Philadelphia, I don't want to say Atlanta's on the come because they're not, but they are showing that they're as good as these other teams. But they need to go on one of those big runs. If they don't go on a 15-5 run, it doesn't matter. They're like we can sit here and say they're power rated as good as these other teams, but if they don't go on a 15-5 run, they miss the playoffs because they've got to start knocking these teams off. And I think they did a pretty good job against the Mets. They did good against the Mets where they swept them at home or whatever, and then went out there and split the series on the road. I guess maybe that's about what you could do. But now they get the Phillies. I think the Phillies are a different team than the Mets. And I think the Mets are well, I shouldn't say different. They're about the same. There's only a certain number of players you got to fear on these lineups. Harper's on his way back. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't make an appearance here in the next couple of days. Like he's taking batting practice now, so I think Harper's going to be in the lineup pretty soon. I don't think he's going to go to a rehab thing. I think they'll just throw him in there and say, "Hey, hit for us," and that'll make them better. So I think as we keep going, the difference in all of those teams, the difference in all of them is the Mets don't have starting pitching, the Phillies do. So over the course of the remaining part of the season, the Phillies have the starting pitchers that are going to keep them in games, and as their offense goes and stays hot, I think they've already caught the Mets. I think they pull away from the Mets. So the Mets are going to have to make some moves to get some pitchers. And what pitchers are available? I mean, you're going to go out and get the kid out.
Walker Buehler.
You're going to go get Alcantara. He's starting to turn it around, right? I mean, that would be a guy that could help your division run. And he's pitched. I don't want to say he's pitched in big games. He's pitched in games that are important to Miami. They're important to his Cy Young type of stuff, personal things, but not necessarily, playoff bound type scenarios. And he's started to turn things around for himself. And you can see, like, I'm interested to see what Evaldi does tonight. Like, you've seen Gilbert, right? Gilbert's come back. He hasn't been great. And he's a great pitcher. And Evaldi's making his first start in a month. So I don't know what to think of that game. Because as you saw with Buehler and some of these guys, when they come back from injury, they're not the same guy. And it takes them a little bit of time to get that right. And maybe, Alcantara is that way, Alcantara, whatever. He's that way too. So maybe he's starting to get it right. And if he's right, then he's a great trade piece for somebody, because his last few starts have been pretty good. And if he's, and I say pretty good, like you get to starting to double-digit strikeouts and, limit the hits and stuff, you're back to a dominant, Cy Young kind of pitcher, and he's available, so if somebody puts a package together and they go get him, he's going to help somebody. And, even if he's the number 2 or number 3 guy in the rotation, he'll help them to get over that hump. Like you were saying, Red Sox, they haven't done anything over the last 3 years. But I look at teams like Minnesota or Cleveland or some of these teams that have had the opportunities to take over their divisions and haven't done anything either. Like you can go make stuff happen and just take over and be good. But, a lot of these guys like to wait because, my Jack Caglianones and, my guys coming up are going to be dynamite. Well, it's going to be a while before those guys are dynamite.
I'm going to move you to the front of the stage. 15 games. We're already 40 minutes deep, so enjoy them. Have some fun with them. Pick and choose whatever you want. I'll come back in a little while, but do your thing, okay?
Yeah, no worries at all. Let me switch my views around so I can see what I'm looking at. All right, so we'll start with the first game. I think let me move this around. Well, that's good. We're talking about New York Mets and the Pittsburgh Pirates. This is Peterson and Keller. So first thing to note, Peterson's off a bad start. So it's his first bad start in his last 7. So I don't expect him to have another bad start. He's been average game score 52 against the Pirates in 5 starts. So that's average, but he threw a game score 22. He is a game score 60 over his last 7, and he's a game score 57 for the year. So he's pretty good. And I don't expect him to throw poorly. So I think that favors the Mets in that regard. And Keller's off a game score 59. His game score for the season is 54. He's been good against the Mets, though, for some reason. He's pitched pretty good against them. And, you're looking at a Sierra number 384 for Peterson and 430 for Keller. So, again, I think the only real value is that you can sit there and go, well, Peterson's going to pitch better. And I think he probably will. And then situationally, what I liked in this spot was Keller or the Pirates. They played 19 times against left-handed pitchers, only won 7. So that's not very good. They're not the best home team. If you really want to win these home games, and they're 20-21, so they're not 500. So that's not good. So I don't think that that's an issue. And the other thing I will say is everybody talks about Skeens and not winning games, but here's because the Pirates aren't any good. But the reality is, I think he's made 16. I think that he's 8-9 in terms of team. So 8 wins, 9 losses. That's pretty normal. Now he's a quality pitcher, so it probably should be higher than that. But he's 8-9. Here's the real problem. Problem is Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller's made 16 starts for the Pirates. The Pirates have won 3 times in his starts. They are 3 wins, 13 losses. So if you're going to try to support the Pirates, I would pass. So, and I think numbers wise, offensively, you got to sit here and go, the Mets are off of a series against the Braves. It's kind of one of those tricky spots. Now they get the Pirates, so they should hit. They are 12th offensively right now, but they're still hitting home runs. They're hitting a lot of them. So they get a little bit of a boost away, and Pittsburgh's not very good at home. So they're minus 14% to an average offense. So I liked this game. My numbers on this game was minus 129 for the Mets. And at the time that I have this, it might not be the same now. It was minus 128, so it's about the same. I didn't bet this game because I found some things I liked better. But at the same time, I'm not opposed to it. I think the Mets beat the Pirates tonight. I think the Mets bullpen's a little weak, so we'll see what happens there. But anyway, food for thought on that one. The next game coming up is Tampa Bay and Baltimore, and I kind of previewed some of this with Jeff already. This is Pepio and Sugano. You got to be real careful in these games where you want to bet road teams. Now, I want to preface this by saying road teams that are good win. They do. So, for example, the Rays on the road are 19 wins, 12 losses. So they win on the road. The interesting thing is Baltimore doesn't win at home. There's 17 wins, 21 losses. That's not very good. And you've got a pitcher matchup today where Pepio, over his last 7 starts as a game score 63.9, 64. That's almost as good as you can do. And in fact, 63.9, that's the best of the day. He's the best pitcher in the last 7 starts going today. So you've got the best pitcher going against a game score 44 for Sugano. So 44, there's a couple guys that are lower than that, but not many. There's 2 guys that I can see. So he's the 3rd worst pitcher. So you got the best pitcher against the 3rd worst pitcher. So that's an advantage to the Rays. It's an advantage to the Rays because they do win at home, and Baltimore doesn't win at home. That's an advantage. And then there's 2 other things you kind of want to look at. Sierra number is 2.82. 2.82 for Pepio. Now, that puts you in the top 5% of all baseball. I mean, it's a great number, 2.82. There is no one, Gilbert, but he doesn't pitch as much. Walter hasn't pitched as much. Nobody's lower than that. So, again, that's the best one. And Sugano, 4.67. Now, there's a couple guys worse than that, but not many. But the differential is almost 2 runs. So think about it from a level of, okay, I kind of have a 2-run advantage here from the pitcher. I got a better situation where the team wins on the road and the other team doesn't. And then the other part of it is you got to look at FIP, okay? Fielding independent pitching. Now, the reason I tell you that is because how reliant on the defense are these pitchers? Because if you're reliant on the defense, that means balls are put in play. So 4.90 for Sugano. That's pretty high. It's not highest on the board today. But that means balls are getting put in play. He's not a strikeout guy. Pepio, 11.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. So he gets them out, not allowing them to hit the ball. So I think that shows a different level of dominance on the road. And then you match that up and you go, well, what does the offense look like for Baltimore? Well, Baltimore's 29th offense in offensive WAR. And if you want to do it by weighted runs created plus, they're negative 41. So that's 41% worse than an average offense. If you want to do it for betting value runs above average, they're minus 9.6 runs to an average offense. And the Rays are 11.8 runs positive. So I think you have a mismatch here. The only thing that holds up for Baltimore is the bullpens. The bullpens are about the same. They're both really good right now. But the number in the game, where is it? That's cool. So if I go over here, my number in the game, I had Tampa Bay minus 137. And when I saw it last, it was minus 126. So I bet this game. I bet Baltimore. I bet the Rays minus 126 today. The Athletics playing the Yankees. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because my opinion is I think the Yankees at home, they get a pretty good boost at home. Their boost at home is they're 21% better at home than they are against an average offense. And I also think that when you look at what the Athletics are doing right now, they're not hitting home runs. They're 30th in isolated power, the Athletics, and they are 28th in standard offense. So you're at a spot here where you got to bet. You're going to have to bet first 5 minus a half run, or you're going to have to bet the run line. The way I looked at it was, I don't think I have a dominant Yankee offense right now, so I'm passing on that game. So I'm not going to break it down any farther than that. I don't think unless somebody has a question or wants to ask something about a game, go ahead. The next one on the board is San Diego. This is an interesting spot because this is Cease and Martinez. Now, Martinez gets a higher grade than you would maybe expect him to. His projected WAR numbers are like 2, and 2 is pretty good. The best in the game is 6. There are only a handful of guys, 5 guys that are 5 or above. There's quite a few in the 4s, quite a few more in the 3s. So Martinez isn't that bad of a pitcher. It's not, but he's not been very good lately. And I don't think that's going to bode well for him tonight. So his numbers against Cease are bad. So Sierra numbers are 4.58 against 3.50. So that's 1 run difference. So that's not too bad. But here's where it gets worse. The FIP number, fielding independent pitching. So let's make sure we understand what it is. So fielding independent pitching is the ability for a pitcher not to use his defense. So all it counts is strikeouts, walks, home runs. That's it. 100%, nothing more. Sierra counts the bases, the ball's in play. So that's why I use that one too. And Sierra's a little bit better predictive number than FIP or XFIP. But you need to be aware of how good these guys are at limiting balls in play. He's not at all good at that. His number is 7.53. There is no one today worse than that. So that means the advantage to the San Diego Padre offense of not striking out, putting balls in play are huge, because Cease 11.75 strikeouts per 9 innings. His FIP number is 2.51. That's pretty good. So when you start to think about where the advantage on the mound is, there's no question it's Dylan Cease. I mean, there's no question. So then you sit there and you go, well, what's the kind of the game score? Well, Martinez hasn't been starting games. He's been coming in and doing bulk games, and it's not been the greatest thing for him because he gets hit. So right now, his last 7 starts, 34.4. Wow, that's pretty bad when your average is 50 or 51, whatever you want to call it. And then over the course of the season, he's a 43. Where is it? Yeah, no, he's 48, so he's just below average. So I think you're running into a spot where Martinez hasn't been good. He's not going to limit balls in play. That's going to free up the Padre offense a little bit. And then when you looked at situationally kind of coming into this game, neither team has got a super good spot. Like 19 and 22 on the road, so that's kind of average, I guess, is what it would say for the Padres. And the Reds are 22 and 18 at home, so nothing dynamic there either. So one of the things that I think that matters here is the Padre bullpen is really good, and the Reds are not. And then secondly, when you look at the offense, San Diego's offense hasn't been the greatest in the world, but it's 14th. And they are going against the Reds offense that's 23rd. So you saw what the Reds were trying to do against the Yankees, and they didn't score a lot of runs, but neither did the Yankees really, right? So in that series, there wasn't a lot of runs scored. Well, Dylan Cease is one of those kind of guys that's a good pitcher, so I don't expect a lot of runs from the Reds side. So if that's the case, then you're going to need to shut him down on the other side. Well, I think that's a bigger problem here in this game. And one of the things that I made note of is San Diego doesn't strike out. Their strikeout rate's 15.8%. So offensively, they are going to hit the ball, and they're going to move it around. So I think that's a big edge to them, for them. And when I did the bet score, it came out that the starting pitcher got a lot of points because his Sierra number was good, his game score was good, and his home runs per 9 are less than 1. So it's good. Well, home runs per 9 innings for Cincinnati is 3.38. 3.38 home runs. So that means he's allowing the dingers to go. So I think you might see some of that. And then offensively, you got a slight edge to San Diego, and then you got another slight edge to San Diego in the bullpen. So now you got starting pitcher, pretty dominant edge, slight edge in offense, slight edge bullpen. I think that makes a pretty good spot here. And then now you need a number. Well, my number was San Diego minus 132, and I saw minus 121. So I bet it. I bet San Diego minus 121. And then the next game coming up is another game I bet. So this is Minnesota-Detroit, and this is one of those weird spots where you sit there and go, David Festa against Gibson Long, Sawyer Gibson Long. I guess these young millennials have different names now, Sawyer and all these other names, but Gibson Long is going to pitch. Neither one of them started in the last couple games. They were kind of not bullpen guys, but bulk guys. They were the 4, 5, 6 inning guys. So, but when you break it down and you kind of start to look at it, David Festa's been bad. 4.67 is his Sierra number. 7.35 is his FIP number. So he's not controlling balls in play. And that's a big advantage to Detroit. That's a huge advantage to Detroit at home because they can hit. Now, on the vice versa side of that, Gibson Long's been average there. 3.65 for Sierra, 4.32 for Phip. So he's controlling it to a degree and not letting it get out of hand. That keeps him in the game. So then you start breaking it down and looking at it. Where's the problem? Well, problem is Festa, 5.0 walks per game, walks per 9 innings. And his home run rate is 3 per 9 innings. So he's letting the balls go out of the yard, and he puts guys on base. It's not a good combination to win these games. And he has pitched in his ex-WOBA, so his data numbers that kind of say, well, how's he going to control the offense today? 416, that's not very good. 320, 330, 340 is probably pretty good. Anything over 400 is really bad. He's 416. Martinez, the pitcher for Cincinnati, is 453. And Sugano, 391. I picked on all those bad guys today. The next couple on there is Abel and Elder, kind of matched up against each other. It makes it hard to bet that. And another one that's bad is Washington Irvin, but we'll get into that one in a second. So anyway, I don't think Festa's going to do well again. Festa, his where is it? There it is. His stuff plus rating is 88. 100 is average. So he's got below average stuff. And 88 is there's one guy worse today, and that's Quintana. Quintana's, he's an old guy pitcher, left-handed finesse guy. So I think you're going to run into the problem that he's got bad stuff. He's going to get hit. Detroit's a good offense. So let's go check on the offense for Detroit. Well, let's check on one other thing. So situationally, going into this game, Minnesota's been up against it. The last 20 games, they've won 5 times, 5-15. Last 10 games, they've only won 3 times. They're 3-7. On the road, they are 17-25. That's not very good. And they're playing a team that 28-13. They're 15 games over 500 at home. You want to know why they've got 51 wins? Because they win at home in dominant style. So I think that's one of those spots where you're going to see it again. And then offensively, Detroit is 5th in offensive WAR. They are 4th in isolated power, so they hit the ball out. They hit doubles, triples, extra base hits. And they are 37% better than an average offense right now. And 9.9 runs better than an average team. And they're going to face a pitcher that can't get anybody out and gets balls in play, right? That's not a good matchup. So when I looked at that game, I thought about it and I said, let's see where that comes out. My number in the game was -120. The number that I saw was -115. Like, that's not too far off. So I bet Detroit at home. Look, I want to bet home teams. So Detroit's a good home team. I want to bet them. This is a good spot. So I bet that game. I didn't make any other bets, but I'm going to tell you there's a lot of other spots that you could make bets. I just narrowed them down because I didn't want to have a whole slate of away games. I already bet 2, right? I bet Tampa Bay and I bet San Diego, and that's because I thought I had 2 things. I thought I had a starting pitcher edge that was pretty good or dominant, and I thought I had a better offense, if not a dominant offense, in those games. In this game, I bet the home team because that's where I want to bet, and I got, I think, pretty close to good value on the game. This one will be for Jeff. This is the Barrios game against Bello. Now, Barrios is off a game score of 77, so he ain't going to throw another one. His game score for the season is 53, so it's average. His game score for his last 7 games is 59, so it's better. So the indication to me is he's probably not going to pitch that great today, although he's pitched good against the Red Sox. His game score is 62 over the last 5 starts against them. His metrics are average, 4.2 Sierra number, 3.36 FIP number. Those are decent average numbers. And look at Bello, it's kind of the same thing. He's 3.93 Sierra number, 3.87 FIP number. So about the same, both average numbers. Now he's off a game score 50. Now what's concerning to me about Bello, not that he's off a 50, his last 3 starts is a game score 60. That's pretty damn good. But over his last 7, it's a 49.7, and for the season he's a 50. So theoretically, he's an average pitcher. That's kind of over his last 3 been up a little bit. So he threw an average start. So that means he's going to throw above average or below. Well, his last, where is he? Bello. His last below average start was 5 games ago. And then 7 games ago, he had a terrible start. So I'm not sure where he's going to be tonight. So I'm a little worried about that part of it. I'm also thinking that Barrios is going to get hit too, because he's not going to go throw a 77. Now, having said that, he's off a game score 25 prior to that. So he might throw an average game tonight, average 55 game, 57 game. And if he does that, that gives them a chance to win. Bello somewhere in the 50 range. It's going to be one of those who knows who's going to win kind of games. So anyway, so that's kind of the way the pitching matchup kind of looks. Both of them have great ex-WOBA numbers. They're both elite numbers, 2.37, 2.21. So theoretically, they've been pitching well enough to hold offenses down. Situationally, this is where I think you got to keep in mind some things about Toronto. Toronto's not a good road team. They're 18-21, so they're kind of average-ish there. The Red Sox aren't the most dynamic team at home, 22-17, so they're a little bit good there. But when it comes to offense, Toronto on the road, they're a 14% worse offense than average on the road. Now, that's concerning because they're a pretty good team, but if you can't bet them on the road, then don't, unless you have a dynamic pitching edge, and I don't think you do. So I think that rules them out as a play. So if you were going to bet, it would be on the way I think about this game. The only way I would bet this game is if I would bet Boston to win, or I would look at some kind of interesting, total package here, because when you think about it, Boston right now at home, they're 4% better than average, but Toronto's minus 1.8 runs to an average offense, but Boston's minus 7. So there's a little bit of an offensive edge just in how they're playing right now, but that can be totally absorbed in the home away kind of thing. So keep that in mind when you start handicapping these games. We'll skip some of these games. St. Louis and Cleveland. I don't really like this matchup real well for St. Louis. I like Gray. I don't like him on the road. He's not a good road pitcher. Let me give you a kind of an idea here. So SOPS plus is another way to look at how a pitcher controls offense, and it's graded as a scale of 100. So on the road, he's a 120, Gray. That means he's 20% worse than average at controlling opponent's offense. I don't want to bet on a pitcher that's 20% worse than average at controlling an offense. So that rules them out. Even though Gray has made 15 starts, they've won 12 times in his 15. Let me say this. Ortiz is a lot better than you think he is. Ortiz, even though he's 6-9, his last 28 days, SOPS plus is an 89. So he's 11% better than average. And he is his last start, though, is what bothers me. His game score 77. I think that's his highest one of the season. So he's not going to do that. His average starts at 50, but he does throw pretty well. He's pitched against St. Louis before. Doesn't do well against them. So, but I don't think there's value here. I skipped this game. If somebody wants me to break it down further or go into any of these games I skipped, go ahead. Let me know. This Philadelphia-Atlanta game, I think, might be a popular game for a lot of people because, people might bet Philadelphia thinking they have value tonight. But let me share this with you. The Sierra number for Nick Abel, 524. 524. The Sierra number for Bryce Elder, 356, almost 2 runs. So the Braves have an almost 2 run advantage there. And then if you go even further and go, well, what's the FIP look like? Well, Abel's the worst one of the whole day, 8.15. Am I kidding? 8.15 FIP number. That means balls are going to be in play, guys. That means Atlanta's going to have all the opportunities. And you've seen Elder pitch. I mean, Elder's he throws hard. He doesn't throw great, but he's not a dynamic thrower. But he's an average pitcher at best. And Nick Abel, his game score is a 46. He's off a game score 10. So maybe he rebounds and has a decent day, but his average game score is a 46. I don't like it. And then when I looked at the offense, this is Philadelphia coming off these games against Houston. They ranked 24th in offense. Well, Atlanta ranks 26th. So who's going to win this game? I don't know. What offense is going to be any good tonight? You got to go with the home team more than you got to go with the away team. But I'm not going to bet minus 160 on this game. I think that's a crazy number. If it was minus 120, 130, that might show value. My number matches up to that too. I was kind of surprised. My number in that game was minus 140, and it's minus 165 last time I saw. So I think there's no value there. The value would be on the Philly side, but I can't bet the Phillies in this game either. So San Francisco White Sox, kind of pass this one off. I think this is a hard one to bet. I really wanted to bet San Francisco in this game because there's a great number out there. San Francisco, you'd have to bet them first 5. San Francisco first 5 minus a half run is plus 101. Plus 101 against Aaron Savali, for God's sakes. So I started looking at that and thinking this is going to be pretty good. I want to do that. And then changed my mind because the biggest reason is the pitcher for San Francisco, Roop, he's off a game score 70. Well, he's not going to throw another one. And if you want to win a first 5 like that, you need dominance from the pitcher to hold the other team down. And if he's not going to be dominant on the mound, I don't care if Savali's on the mound or not, they're going to have to out-hit him. Well, can they out-hit him? Well, offensively right now, the Giants, they rank 15th. And the White Sox ranked 19th. So I don't think that's telling me that they're going to definitely do that. So San Francisco is minus 0.9 runs to an average offense, and the White Sox are minus 4.8. So too close. But I like the line. I like the thought. I like the idea. Savali's terrible. I wanted to bet against him, but it doesn't match up to what I think is right. So if you do that, I don't blame you, but it wasn't good enough for me, so I passed. This is the game I'm not going to go over as much, but I want to watch it. This is Gilbert and Eovaldi, Seattle against Texas. Look, Eovaldi's been really, really good. He got hurt. He's been out for over a month. He hasn't pitched in 30 days. Guys that come back like that aren't the same guy, at least the first time out. Look at Gilbert. He had those problems. And since Gilbert's come back, Gilbert, when he came back, he threw a game score 29, game score 59. I don't know what you're going to get. So because I don't know what you're going to get from the pitchers, I can't sit there and tell you you're going to get a dominant pitching performance out of either one. My thoughts are that you'll get more of a dominant pitcher out of Gilbert because he's at least had 2 starts coming into this. The other side of this is Texas is good at home in regards to how they win. Texas at home, but they are 23-16 at home. Seattle don't mind the road. They're 21-20. And they actually get a lift on the road in terms of offensive performance because Seattle playing at home is terrible. Their offensive performance on the road is plus 20%. Only the Cubs are better. So that just wrinkles everything for me because I like Seattle. I like them on the road. I don't know what I'm going to get from Eovaldi. And if I get Bulldog Eovaldi that goes out there and only gives up 0 to 1 run, this might go the other way because Texas can play good at home. So I'm going to pass it. But I like Seattle. Anyway, next game is Freeland and look, I don't know Freeland's pitching. I just had that in there. That's what I saw. Um, this is Quintana from Milwaukee. It's minus 17 million. Anytime you have Colorado on the road, it's going to be like that. I'm passing this game. I'm not even looking at it. But I will say this: situationally, one thing you should be aware of. Anytime Colorado is playing a left-handed pitcher, understand they've done it 23 times. They've won twice. They're 2-1 against 2-21 against left-handed pitching. So, and here you got Quintana on the mound, a left-handed pitcher. Freeland's the best pitcher Colorado has, if that's who's pitching. I suppose I can probably look real fast because it was listed as undecided. It's still listed as undecided. When I looked it up and kind of tried to backtrack it, I think Freeland's going to pitch. So that's who I have listed as the game. So if it's not, then it's not. But it doesn't matter. I'm not going to break it down. So we'll go into the next game. This is an interesting game. Chicago Cubs, Houston Astros. Walter is pitching for Houston, and you have Horton pitching for the Cubs. Now, Horton's a rookie, and so basically is Walter. Walter's a lefty. The Cubs against left-handed pitching haven't been terrible. They've been pretty good. They've been pretty good on the road, and they've been scoring a lot of runs. All they do is hit that team. The Houston Astros had been scoring runs until they ran into Philadelphia pitching. So we'll see what happens in this matchup. So the pitching matchup is kind of crucial in the sense that Horton is a 4.25 Sierra. So that's kind of high. It's not significantly high, but kind of high. And Walter's a 2.60. So that's really good. So you got kind of an edge for Walter on the mound, but that flips when you get to the FIP number. The FIP number is a dominant number for Horton, 2.64 and 4.20 for Walter. So why is that? Why would that be the case? Well, the reason for that is because 1.93 home runs per 9 inning for the Astros pitcher. So the Astros pitcher, Walter, gives up 2 home runs a game, 9 innings. And what do the Cubs do? They just hit home runs. So I don't think that's a good matchup for Houston. I don't know that it's a great matchup for the Cubs either, because if I look at Horton's stuff, Horton is a 97, and so is Walter. So they're basically about the same in terms of stuff. Pitcher plus, meaning that how they control the stuff. Well, Horton's a little better, 102. So he's a little better than average. And Walter's a 97. So then you start to go, all right, what's going on situationally here? Well, the Cubs are 23-18 on the road. Pretty good. But I don't know if you guys know this. Did you know that Houston's won 30 games at home already? 30! They're 30 wins, 13 losses at home. One of the best home records, if not the best home record in baseball. It's hard to bet against them at home. But now you got that dynamic of great road team, good home team, kind of weird pitching matchup where there's not really one that's better than the other. But I will tell you this, there is not one bullpen better than Houston. Houston is the number one bullpen in baseball. Over the last 14 days right now, 2.82 xFIP number, 2.10 Sierra number, 12.71 strikeouts per 9 innings. And when it comes to WPA, win percent added, and clutch rating, they're green there too. They are green everywhere. They're the best bullpen there is. There isn't one even close. So, as I say, maybe this game comes down to a bullpen game, and that puts the advantage to Houston. But, so then you got to go look at it and go, well, offensively, right now the Cubs are number one in baseball. The Cubs are 12.1 runs better than an average offense. And, Houston was up there until they got to the Phillies, and now they're minus 5.1. It's just a weird thing, right? So which offense is better? Well, kind of who they pitched against. So my numbers come out this way. I had the game Chicago minus 101. And then that means that the Astros will be plus 101. And then when I looked at it and put them in here, it was Houston minus 102. So it's kind of, I don't have any value. Interesting game. Fun to watch kind of game, but not a great bet. The next one is the Dodgers and the Royals. Look, the Royals can't hit. And if you're going to place the Dodgers, you better be able to score runs, and they can't. So I don't care who pitches for Kansas City, and I don't care who pitches for the Dodgers. You start looking to be betting Dodgers or pass. So the Royals have scored 1.7 runs per game in the last 7 days. You're not going to beat the Dodgers that way. You're just not. May's not a great pitcher. Cameron's a really good pitcher so far for the Royals, but they're going to hit him. They're going to score 4 or 5 runs, and that's going to throw this thing all out of whack. And the Royals at home offensively are the worst advantage they have. Minus 37%. They get the worst lift of any time. It's not even a lift. It's going to get crushed on it at home. So if you ever want to bet Royals, bet them on the road. And I know that's the worst thing to say, but I don't know how you can bet Royals. They don't score any runs unless you're going to bet unders and stuff like that because of their pitchers. So how do you bet Dodgers? Well, you got to figure out how to bet Dodgers. And when I looked at it, I was looking at Dodgers. They're minus 146. Well, minus 146 is a good number to bet first fives and stuff like that, because when you're in the 140 range, look at the first 5 numbers. They're plus money a lot of times. You can get Dodgers plus money in the first 5 innings. All you got to do is score 1 run and beat this guy. I started looking at that. Well, Dodgers aren't necessarily great on the road. They're not bad, but they're not like they are at home. So I decided I would skip this one because I've already bet 2 on the road, and I already had a bunch of other games I liked on the road. But my suggestion would be, if you like that kind of stuff, that's a good game to look at that. Washington and the Angels, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I think the line's – let me put it this way. I have the line at Angels minus 140. I saw minus 155. Soriano's been really good. Soriano is off of a game score. Where is he? Soriano, there he is. He's off a game score 74. Prior to that, 72. Prior to that, 82. He's going to get lit up here in a minute. He's not that pitcher. His game score for the season's a 54. So he's an above average pitcher, but he's not an 80-70 guy. And this is kind of one of those spots where, the Angels aren't the best home team in the world. They've been hitting. This is one of those games where Irvin, he can get hit too. Maybe you look at the over here. But I think Soriano is not worth spending the money on at minus 150 today. Last game, kind of a tough game. I don't know. This is Miami and Arizona. This is Yuri Perez and Kelly. Kelly's been really good for Arizona, and he's off of a bad start. Game score 49, and a 42 prior to that. But for the season, he's a 56. And for the last 7 games, he's a 59. So almost ace-like. So I think they're going to win, Arizona. But I think one of my fear in this game is this will be Yuri Perez's 4th start. And he's another one of those injured guys. His first start, 38. His next start, and I say 38, it's game score. Game score 38, game score 46, game score 52. Improvement. His 5th number, 2.99, one of the best ones of the day. And that's because he's not giving up home runs. So it's one of these spots where he's got great stuff. His stuff number is 119, so 19% better than an average pitcher. In fact, it is the best of the entire day. There's nobody better. Pepio is next behind him at 111. So maybe in his 4th, 5th, 6th starts, he's going to get the control back. He's going to be able to get to this point where, look, Yuri Perez can pitch. I'm not saying he's Cy Young, but he can pitch. And if he can pitch good enough, hold him in these games. Remember, they just beat the Giants a bunch of times, for God's sakes. So this is one of those spots where I think a veteran pitcher like Merrill Kelly can control this game. But do you really want to go? I think the number on this game, where was it? The number was, again, this shows you how good Yuri Perez is. The first 5 number was plus 100. Minus half a run was plus 100 for Arizona. So that tells you that they think that Miami's going to hit and that Yuri Perez might not allow the other team to hit. So I just passed on that one because I think it was kind of a bad spot. Unless you want to try to guess at Miami. I don't want to play all these road teams either. So, Jeff, that's what I got. I ended up with a couple road games and one home team, and hopefully maybe gave some people some value to what they wanted to bet. I don't know.
Amazing as always. I love our Friday night bright lights in the MLB full slate. Scotty, I like to say this. We're in the dog days of summer. We know that, but we've been around long enough, and the weather's getting warmer. We had Monday, Tuesday. We had a 4-day 90, 95 here on the Cape, 80% humidity. I mean, it was. I lost 10 pounds just on my beach cardio. But my point is, numbers start to shrink in some parks. The ball's not carrying. Other parks, the ball is flying. And we're getting closer to the All-Star break. And so we're leading up to the break. A couple of the veterans are like, hey, Coach, I'm not on the All-Star team. I'd like to go to, Aruba for a couple days. People are checking out. We still get some time. July 1st isn't till Tuesday, but your eyes noticing some of the numbers and the totals and the pace has seemed to slow down just a smidge?
Yeah, I think there's a lot going around about the balls and what they're made out of, and whether they fly, don't fly, all that kind of stuff. We've been talking about this stuff for the last 5 years. At least it seems that way. And I feel like I've just been beating a dead horse. I don't think people really realize that there has been no better pitching in Major League Baseball than there is today. None. I know everybody wants to talk about the Pedros, and they want to talk, and I don't mean you personally. But just a name, right? Tom Severs, and you want to go talk about anybody that you bring up the past. Anybody, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't. Look, you put those guys on the mound against these hitters, they're going to hit them. And the reason they're going to hit them is because those guys back in those days don't have the technology. They don't have the information. And to be honest, the stuff doesn't move like it does today. It doesn't. So then when you start to think about how good these hitters are, and I know we make fun of them a lot, and I do. I make fun of them all the time. But God, they're really good hitters. They're the best hitters in the world. Don't ever forget what you're witnessing are the best baseball players that the planet has to offer. Sure, there might be a couple guys here, there, sprinkled around that don't play in Major League Baseball that are pretty good. But as a group, as a whole, there is no better talent anywhere in the world. So as this stuff kind of goes, stuff dynamically are going to start to change. I've been thinking about, how these umpires are making mistakes on these calls, and they give the pitchers the breaks half the time, and a majority of the time the balls are getting called for, an inch outside or 2 inches, 3 inches outside and all that stuff. I'm like, don't do that. The pitchers already have so much of an edge over the hitters. Like, we got to find a way to give the hitters some kind of things back. It's like those kind of things. The other thing that we're getting into and getting ready to get into is innings and inning limits and guys that have been pitching and haven't been pitching. So you got to kind of watch some of this stuff. So The Cubs' best pitcher so far has been Boyd, right? I mean, he's been their best pitcher. You know that he's already right now pitched more innings than he has in his last 3 years. So what does that tell you? That tells you the Cubs have a problem. I think they're going to keep throwing him out there until something happens to him, and he's probably going to keep going out there until something happens to him. It's not like he goes and throws 115 miles an hour and his arm's going to break, but it is a significant concern when if you don't track these kind of things where the pitchers that are going against innings that they haven't faced before. We got a lot of young kids. Those young kids, they're going to start breaking through, and they're going to add more innings that they haven't had before. That's when things start to get a little dicey too. It's I remember, I think it was last year, I kept talking about Simeon Woods Richardson, who was doing great. Then he hit that innings thing, and all of a sudden he was no good at all. You just keep an eye on some of that stuff, and because that's, as a gambler, that's your edge. That's your edge nobody's paying attention to. So when you make your bets, you want to find the edges that nobody knows about. And obviously, you can let me in on them, but nobody else.
And Scotty Webb will always say and cherish, go to the window with conviction. Understand, don't shake your head when you're going to the window, and then, of course, doubt yourself for the shoulda, coulda, woulda. So another week in the books. Next week, a short week, so we're going to bring Scotty in at 10:30 a.m. on Monday to recap the weekend and get you set up for the Monday afternoon and evening MLB market. Then we're going to try to do some work behind the scenes and figure out what we want to do at the end of the week, since 4th of July is on Friday. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at ET Sports Invest, the one and only Mr. Scotty Webb at Webby20 MLB, we wish everyone a blessed weekend. Enjoy yourself, stay hydrated, behave yourself, and we'll see you soon.